Hello and welcome to the Addicts Anonymous podcast. I'm your host, Jim Mark. Today's episode 48, and we're going to be interviewing Dawn D. How are you doing today, Dawn?
I am fantastic, Jim. Thanks for inviting me.
No, I'm very happy to have you. So let's dive in. Tell us about, I guess, growing up in your childhood.
Okay, back to the beginning. I was
Oh,
born.
yeah.
I was born
Beginning
in
of time.
1970. Wow. I have parents who hated each other and probably shouldn't have been parents. And substance abuse problems way back then. Some people say that alcoholism is genetic, and if it is, then I got it through my genes for
So
sure.
they drank, their drug of choice was alcohol.
There I wasn't recording things when I was little, but my understanding, I can't always tell what stories are true and what they're not, but my understanding is that my dad did a variety of drugs throughout his life, and my mom liked to drink, smoke some pot, and I was not. My mom loves me desperately, but I was not a priority, right? Because other things came first.
Yeah.
And then, my mom and dad were divorced when I was 2, and then my mom remarried, and I'm pretty certain that my stepfather was something strange is happening on my screen right now. Everything just went black.
Oh, I can still see you on mine.
Okay, I'll keep talking.
Okay.
My stepfather, I think, was also a drug addict. He may have shot heroin. I never saw it myself, but there was chaos, total chaos in my life growing up, and that would explain some of that. My grandmother, who was my favorite person on the planet, she was sober 20 years when she died. She also drank excessively when I was young. And
I was
my
just
mom,
about to say, wow, that really runs in the family, huh?
yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah. And on both sides of my family, back and back and back, I've heard stories about just all kinds of, my father had a really abusive mom who drank when he was a kid. And, that my parents come by their, coping skills because that's what they were exposed to. And so, then my mom told me just yesterday, my mom told me that my grandmother got sober because of me, because she showed up once again at their house, at 2:00 in the morning, completely tanked. And my mom told her she couldn't come anymore. She couldn't come to my house, our house, because it was bad for me. And so, my grandma got sober after that. And then I went to meetings with her when I was young.
How young?
Well, let's see. If I got sober when I was 22.
Okay.
And so I think probably 10 years before that.
So you were 12. Okay.
Yeah,
Pretty young.
about that. And when my grandma got sober, she was really active in the program that she belonged to, and she ran the central office where she lived. And I would unpack literature with her. Like, I would come across these pamphlets about I don't remember what it's called, but some like "Where's Alice" or something. And it seemed so like scandalous to me that there's cartoon pictures of this woman all passed out with a bottle and her children looking on in the background. And, that was kind of my life. And there it was on display for people to see. And I would read it and, file literature up on the wall for my grandmother. And then at noon, she would lock up the central office, and we would cross the street to the Alano Club, and we would go to a meeting. And so I had the experience of, clean and sober people, and meetings and the 12 steps and, the serenity prayer and all of that stuff. Even though I wasn't attending the meetings for myself, my grandmother was there, and I would eat lunch and listen and hold hands with the old guys at the end and keep coming back, and I think the seed was planted for me so that after I was finished with my short stint of very crazy, I knew where to go.
So what was school like growing up?
For me, going to school was kind of a safe haven. I'm smart, and so as a result, I got pulled out, and recognized by teachers and special reading groups and um, opportunities to be appreciated. M- my teachers uh, they took care of me, and so I felt safe going to school, and I was successful going to school. And at my house, we were poor. We had circumstances where the lights weren't always on. And like I remember my mom and I sitting on the couch watching the mice chase each other, and that was like entertainment.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and 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 furthermore, I mean, I haven't even mentioned the fact that my stepfather molested me. I mean, and he used to beat up my mom. Like it was horrendous. And so going to school made it safer. Like that was a place where those things didn't happen. But what I was going to say about, being poor, that I remember these little red tickets that they would give the kids who got free lunches. And it's ridiculous to give a little kid a red ticket at the beginning of the day and tell them not to lose it. And then at
Yeah.
lunchtime, you have to present that little red ticket and get free lunch. And I just remember feeling different and ashamed. There's the red ticket line, and then there's the not red ticket line, and feeling, yeah, less than. Um, and my mom left my stepfather when I was, I want to say 10-ish. She left, she went back, she left. She may have gone back a couple of times actually, because that, you know, sick cycle and relationships. But eventually, it was just my mom and I, and she had to figure out ways to clothe a teenager and keep up with all of that. And so she had 2 or 3 jobs, and I remember wearing jeans that were too small for me and feeling super weird, awkward, and ugly. And because I had had uh, sexual abuse, being ashamed of my body and who not having an idea who I was, or not having any self-awareness. So I was an awkward teenager, and school is always awkward for kids, middle school kids in particular. But I remember feeling really weird in middle school, and that's when I started getting high. Because,
What was your first experience getting high?
well, I think it was smoking pot, but it may have been warm beer on the railroad tracks with a friend. So, those things were happening at kind of the same time.
So it was
Um,
one or the other.
yeah, it was one or the other. And I really liked checking out. There was a lot for me to process and deal with and digest in my life. And I didn't have any skills to do that. Nobody was helping me with that process. We really had like a, don't talk about it, keep things
What do you mean?
secret.
You mean like zone out, like mentally just have nothing on your mind, or what do you mean?
Uh, well, I mean that, I had all this fucked up childhood, and I didn't want to deal with it, or I didn't know
Mhm.
how to deal with it. I didn't know what to do to deal with it. I didn't know that people could deal with it. We kept secrets. We didn't talk about that stuff. And so checking out by drinking or getting high was my solution. So
Gotcha.
I didn't know how to process all of that.
Understood.
Yeah.
So did your parents ever seek help? Did they ever try to go to rehab? Did they ever do anything like that?
No. No way. Like I have, I don't live with either one of my parents. I don't know really what goes on with them, but my dad is an older man and he's had some health problems, and I know that he did some jail time, and he was doing some pretty heavy drugs, and it was he was forced to not do them anymore because he was in jail. But he's dry now, but he doesn't have any program. He's never been to therapy as far as I know. This is my biological father. And he's never done anything to treat those things. My mom also has, I don't know what she does. They don't put that stuff on display for me. They know that I'm clean and sober, so
Yeah.
I feel like I'm kind of cushioned, insulated from whatever they're doing. But I know for sure that my mom thinks if she went to therapy or if she sought any kind of help, that it would destroy her emotionally. She shuts it all down and tries to go through life without feeling it. I'm the opposite. I'm like, I put myself in therapy when I was in high school. I asked for therapy. I asked to seek, some kind of help, and I got put into a group. There was a little white van that came and picked me up after school every day for a while I was in high school.
Where did it take you?
It took me to the next city over, where there was like a teenage I don't know what it would be called, but it was like these kids who were kind of fucked up. We all got thrown together. We would have group therapy, and we would have individual therapy, and we would go on field trips and have activities together. And it was just a way, I think, for us to have some kind of community. There were like 5 of us, I think, and not, hopefully not fall into being bad kids. But I was totally a bad kid. And I have, I have a lot of privilege. I'm like, I'm a cute white girl. So I could do things that other people can't do and not get in trouble.
Yep.
I remember, I used to hang out so after my mom left my stepdad, we moved to this sort of nice suburb in LA. And this wonderful older couple rented us the house behind theirs, and they never raised our rent the whole time we were there for like 9 years. Super generous people. And I would have parties in that house, and I would invite people over, and we, trash things, and we were noisy. And I, I drove drunk, and I went and, we had a curfew for people under 18, where I think it was, I don't know, 9 o'clock, where you had to be off the streets. And we would go to one friend's house and drink beer on his front lawn. And sometimes the cops would roll up and harass us. And, we were kind of punks. We were causing problems. I think I don't remember a lot because I started drinking pretty heavily during that time. But I think one time when we were drinking at the school, one of the guys broke into a classroom and sprayed fire extinguisher in the classroom. I didn't actually see it with my own eyes, but like, that's the kind of shit that I was participating in. And if the police got involved, it was kind of a pat on the head and, go on home, little girl. So I didn't get in trouble for a lot of things, but I should have.
Yeah. So tell me
Yeah.
about as you're getting older. Tell me about that.
All right. So first I will say that when I was 15 and a half, I was in a car accident. I was a passenger in a car, and there were 6 of us in the car.
You're all crammed in there.
All crammed into a little Honda Prelude. And
My God, 6 people. That's a 2-door car, isn't it?
yeah. Yeah. And so I had told my mom that I was going to spend the night at my friend's house, and my friend told her mom that she's going to spend the night at my house. And
Okay.
we just never went home. And we were drinking and smoking and probably swallowing things, and got into this car with a boy that we didn't know, and he was driving recklessly, and we ran into a big old walnut tree, and the car wrapped itself around the tree, and the engine was in the front seat. He died. He was crushed by the steering wheel. And my best friend and I, who were sharing the passenger seat without a seatbelt on, had to be pulled out of the car with the jaws of life because the dashboard was all, wrapped around us. And
so you were in the front seat?
Yeah, I was in the front seat, and we were in the hospital. I was in the hospital, I think, for 2 weeks. And that might have been a good time to reevaluate my drinking and drug use.
Yeah.
Might have been a good time to say, oh, this is bad. Somebody died. The other people in the car, there were major traumatic injuries. I lost a ton of blood. I broke my femur. Lots of punctured my lung. They thought I was going to die. Lots of very bad things happened. And instead, after that, and it may have been too, like, again, no processing, no therapy, no way of dealing with all of these emotions, no adults to talk to. I definitely turned to drugs and alcohol. That was, more coping. I think that's so much of why I drank and used. Coping with all of this stuff. So I'm getting older. I graduate from high school. I move out with my boyfriend. He was the first person who told me that he didn't like me when I drank. At that time, I think I had a bottle of vodka under the driver's seat of my car. So at some point with him, I quit drinking for a while. I think when I tell the story, I say that it was a year. I don't know if that's accurate, but about a year. And in that time, I broke up with him, and I moved far away, and I just, found new friends who drank like my old friends did. And eventually, I drank again.
Fell back into it.
Yeah. And drinking is definitely my drug of choice. Like it's legal. I was too young to buy it, but I could, find someone to buy it for me. There are plenty of people who like to buy alcohol for young girls.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. And so, plenty of predators in my life, plenty of sexual assault in my life, more reason to drink because I have to, cope with all of those things. And I don't know. I just wanted to be numb. I just want to be numb. Sometimes I had a great time when I drank. Sometimes I was the party girl and people loved having me around, and I was fun and wild, and I would do brave things. And sometimes I took off my clothes. People like that. Guys like that. And sometimes when I drank, I projectile vomited, and I misplaced my shoes, and I had sex with somebody else's boyfriend or girlfriend. My actions didn't match my intentions, and I could blow it off. Oh, I was drinking, but people don't really like hanging out with that person once it starts to get messy. I found myself, hanging out with lower and lower companions, because then they're the identified problem, not me. I'm not the problem. I can think of lots of circumstances where that happened, where, you know, I would be hanging out with people who were committing crimes, and I could say like, you know, that person's a problem. Look at that. Or, you know, for instance, right before I got sober, there was a woman that I spent time with whose her girlfriend was a friend of mine, and I was living in San Francisco at the time, and I liked to hang out with them because this woman drank way worse than I did. Like, she was a menace to society. She would be kicked off of public transportation because she drank so bad. In San Francisco, that's a big deal. And you know, she would get angry, and she had guns, and she broke windows, and she was crazy. She was dangerous. And I hung out with them because I could say to my friend, like, wow, your girlfriend's really fucked up. You know, that's, I don't know why you stay with her. She's passed out again. Can I have another beer? And she tried to kill herself and ended up strapped down at San Francisco General.
Did that have anything to do with any type of drugs? Was she
I don't know the answer to that.
okay?
But what I do know is that the good people of AA came to visit her in that hospital.
Really?
And yep. And they reached out to her, and she got sober.
That's
And
great.
yeah. And I went over there a couple of times after that. She was bright-eyed and clear-skinned and funny. I had known that she was funny. She was changing. I was watching her change, and I didn't want to go over there anymore because it made me uncomfortable. Like, who am I going to party with now? And shortly thereafter, when I had my last drink, I called her, and she took me to a meeting. And I've been sober ever since.
So, at what age did that happen?
I was 22, so October 27th, 1992.
That's your clean date.
It is. And for me, I know it's not true for everyone, but for me, clean and sober is important. That's what I do. So not only do I not drink alcohol, but I also don't smoke anything, and I don't take pills that don't belong to me, and I don't, you know, I'm not checking out anymore. I'm present, and I'm feeling all the feelings. And yeah. So anyway, so back to I called her. You know, I my last night drinking was not exciting. I've got way more excitement in, you know, my life leading up to that. But the last night that I was drinking, I was in a bar. I felt lonely. I was surrounded by people, but I didn't feel like anybody knew me because they didn't, because I was so guarded and I had so much armor.
I say it like this: addiction is a lonely place to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I couldn't feel. I was afraid to feel, because if I did, I would have to feel all that shit that I've just told you about. And I was incapable of doing that alone. I didn't know how. And so, you know, everybody's got some kind of armor. And it's really easy to identify if you like look at somebody who's got, you know, a mohawk and a leather jacket with spikes on it, you know, that's clear. That's their armor. For me, my armor has always been like smiling, everything's great, I'm fine.
Putting on a mask.
Yeah, putting on a mask.
A lot of us addicts do that. A lot
Well,
of
I think humans do that, but
This is
just to
true.
different levels.
Fair
You
enough.
know,
That's fair enough.
I was not interested in letting anyone get to know me. And so, so there I was in a bar full of people, some of whom I knew, some of whom I partied with regularly. And I felt alone and I felt pathetic. And I had tried not to drink previously. I said I wasn't going to. I meant it with every fiber of my being. And then by the end of the day, I was drinking again.
Oh, you froze up in case you could hear me. All right, Dawn froze up here. We're going to give it a few moments. See if we get her back on the line.